Welcome to class number 10. In this class, I want to again do a conversation. Well, I guess it's a monologue in some ways about interesting photos. Take a look at some, talk about the different elements that really help you create interesting photos. And that's what we're going to do. But before we do that, you know what we got to do? We got to do the dad joke. And today's dad joke is also a math joke. So it's like double bonus. I hope you're sitting down. All right, here's today's dad joke. Math joke too. Anyway, recent studies have found that 5/4 of people are bad at fractions. Do you get it? 5 out of 4, 5/4. It's an improper fraction. It's kind of a math joke. Okay. Maybe you're laughing. Maybe you're rolling your eyes. Maybe you're shaking your head. Either way, no extra charge. All right, so I want to talk about interesting photos. We've been talking about it so far all quarter. It's pretty much the basis of everything we do in this class. So here we go. So let's again start at the beginning a little bit and unpack interesting photos. So again, the definition of interesting is something that holds the attention. You remember this? So you look at it for longer. It gets your attention. It slows you down. In the midst of our busy, busy world, it's things that we slow down and watch or pay attention to, listen to, watch, engage with. Okay? My phrase in photography I use a lot in talking about interesting things is look for things that are unique, rare, and different, things you don't see all the time. If you've got a pattern of something, you got one thing that's different in the midst of that pattern. That's different. It'll get your attention. Unique way of looking at a common object or an uncommon object with interesting light. All those layers of unique, rare, and different that we add to our recipe for photos. So interesting photos have a recipe, and they consist of subject, light, composition, and the last ingredient, which we've been working with more lately, is processing with software, and we're using Adobe Lightroom Classic. So all those things can add interest to your photo. The one you have the most control of almost all the time is composition of those first three. You also obviously have lots of control with processing. So let's unpack this a little further and talk about specifically story and emotion in photos. Story and emotion. That's kind of the ultimate goal in a photo. A photo that has probably the most interest, creates the most attention, has a story component, has an emotional component, something beyond just here's a picture of 100 rocks or even 100 people. How can we create a story around that? So the reason I think this is so important and so powerful is because story and emotion add an extra layer of meaning. They add an extra layer of interest, engagement, beyond just here's a red jacket, a red car. It's beyond that. So we have a connection to red. So let's use shutter speed to make this red car look like it's zooming by really fast. So that would add to our feeling of red being kind of loud. And so if it's moving fast, you see what I'm saying? So paying attention to all those things, paying attention, becoming more deeply aware of them. And it takes time. It takes practice. It takes intention. You've got to want to do it. You've got to think about it a little bit. Eventually it becomes a habit that is just part of your way of seeing. And that's a fun place to be. So let's talk about story for a little bit. Story in photos. What can help create stories? Here's a list. So story can be created in a couple of ways. So if you can show journey or travel, a sense of motion, a sense of going from one place to another, a sense of getting something done. Um, People and faces are another really powerful and relatively simple way to help people connect to tell a story. Because when we see a face, whether it's a person, a dog, a bird, a cat, or whatever, we tend to connect more deeply to that. We are drawn to faces. It's just how our brains work. If you can add a layer of drama, um, drama is conflict, is something's happening. There's a good guy, a bad guy, stuff like that. It's the age old hero and villain, whatever that means. So if you can add that to your photos, that's pretty powerful. Now, how do you do that with a nature photo? I don't know for sure, but well, I can think of a couple ways. But anyway, okay. Drama, add relationships, connections. We like those things. We can do that with, obviously, with people in the way maybe they're looking at each other, the way they're interacting. We can do that with inanimate objects. We can create it's called anthropomorphizing. I think that's how you say it. Anthropomorphizing, where you put human feelings, emotions, characteristics onto inanimate objects or non-human objects. So you can create that. We see human elements in, oh, there's a face on a rock or something like that. Okay. And then framing and composition also helps tell a story. That is a great way to do hierarchy, to do relationships, to do one over another, how they're connected, and things like that. So pay attention to those things. How can you use these different elements? Maybe you use a couple, maybe you only use one, but if you have some of these elements in your photos, they're going to tend to be more interesting. So think of ways you can suggest these things through composition, through light, through color of light, through the other properties of light. All these ways you can suggest story. And then we get to emotion. How do we create emotion in photos? Here's the list of that. So the list for emotion, one of the first ones on here is mood. So that's just the overall happy, sad, bright, dark, quiet, loud, those kind of things. What is the overall mood? And again, you can do that with composition. You can do that with light, color, quantity, and direction, and quality. So all those things. Obviously, well, I just talked about light too. So light has a powerful connection for us with emotion in lots of different ways, both the color, the type of light, the direction of light, the quality of light. We connect. We connect. Color, boy, I'm just kind of going ahead of each one here. Color creates emotion. Again, warmer colors, we have a connection with certain feelings. Cooler colors, the blues and the greens and the purples, we have a different, generally, set of connections with that. And the interesting thing about this is, especially for this emotion stuff, it's relatively cross-cultural. It doesn't matter where you come from. You generally have certain connections to certain colors and feelings and moods and all those kind of things. They can be created in the same way. And then we get framing and composition again. We can use camera position, what's between us and the subject, to layer in emotion, to create tension, to create feeling. So let's look at some examples of this, how this all works together. Here are some examples of ways you can do all this. So let's start with really paying attention to the unique, rare, and different. Noticing when you're out and about doing your ordinary life. And this is what I love, is you can do this. You don't have to go to exotic places. You can be in your room, in your house, in your neighborhood, between here and where you work, or things like that. There's stuff happening that is unique, rare, and different. So here's an example, and some more after this. So this one I really love because The birds are, there's a relationship. There's a story in the movement of the bird, the one with his wings out, her wings out, I don't know. And then you've got the moon up there. So all those things create a story. There's something here besides two birds on a light pole. There's something else going on, and part of that is the composition, what you don't see. You don't. This is at the Ballard Locks, if I remember correctly, so you don't see all the busyness down below. I've hidden that with composition. I've just tilted the camera up. That includes the moon, an extra element of unique, rare, and different. Moon is not as often visible during the day, so you add an element. The color here of the blue, speaking of birds, I got our baby crows outside yelling at each other. Again, the big thing that makes this is the gesture of that bird with his wing, the bird's wings out. So when you see something, take a photo, but also hang around, especially if it's a living thing. It might do something to add a layer to complement and increase interest in your photo. So don't just click and walk away. Hang around a little bit, see if there will be some movement, some motion, some gesture, something interesting happen just because it's a living thing and we'll do different stuff. I really like this. This is in Capitol Hill a few years ago. Someone graffitied on a mailbox, "Can't have nice things," and which is really ironic because the reason that phrase "we can't have nice thing" is because some people wreck it for others. Well, when you write that phrase on a public thing, you've wrecked it for others. So anyway, a whole bunch of commentary here. The mood is enhanced by the way I process this. I exposed it just a little darker, added texture, clarity, dehaze to bring out some of the grit and the drama. Again, kind of kept the composition minimal by not showing a whole bunch of what else is going on around in this, just enough for context, but nothing specific. If I didn't tell you this was Capitol Hill, this could be almost anywhere. Anyway. Yeah, notice stuff. Like a boot on a parking garage roof. One boot. Where's the other one? That's always a story. Sometimes the absence of something can create a story. So pay attention for things that look like they're missing something else. And again, the composition, I kept it simple. You don't see any cars. You don't see anything else. Other people. It accentuates the loneliness that I was kind of going for with this. I positioned it, the boot, so it was against the darker part, so it would stand out more because it's got sun on it. All sorts of little things that just a little bit of movement, motion, of composition helps you accentuate the story you're trying to tell. And that's one of the things, I know I've mentioned it before, but one of the things we tend not to do in photography is we just stand somewhere, we notice something, we click and walk away. And we forget to work a little bit at it, to sketch ideas, click and then check and see if it's interesting to you. And if it's not, then keep working it. Move in and out. Gosh, those birds are really loud today. Up and down, closer, left and right. Try all the combinations to see how can you really tell the story you're trying to tell. And the way you can do that, you have to have an idea in mind besides just, I want to make an interesting photo. If you want to create the most interest in your photo, have an idea of the emotion, mood, feeling you're going for, and that will help inform what you're going to do with composition, how you're going to play with light, and all those kind of things. Have an idea. Don't just go, ooh, cool boot. One boot. What does that mean to you? Yeah, how do you feel about it? In the Student Union building here, this balloon, the smiley face balloon that got away and made its way up into the ceiling. I always suggest people when you're out and about or inside a building even, look up, look down, make sure you turn around, look that way, this way. Yeah, there's stuff all around, just a matter of noticing it usually. And So I wanted this to feel simple. You know, the happy face balloon is a very simple. The happy face logo or icon, whatever it is a very simple thing. So I wanted to keep the composition simple. So I zoomed in. I went with rule of thirds. It's kind of off in the right third, but still somewhat center aligned. It just kept it simple. Um, Darkened everything else, brightened the balloon a little bit with processing, and that tells the story. Uh, yeah, this is kind of like a coronavirus story. Yes, I'm happy, but I'm also a little deflated, and I'm in a place that I feel stuck. Yeah, I mean, you can tell lots of layers of stories in relatively simple objects, depending on how you're currently feeling. This is in Fremont, actually. This little posing mannequin. They use these for figure drawing often and things like that. Um, that someone had positioned in a window and made it look like it's running. And I love the story here of running. Okay, the story I tell is it looks like it's running to the open window so he can climb down the pipe and get out. Okay, now maybe that says something about me. I don't know, what story do you make up when you look at this? And that's what's really super cool is that hopefully all of us will make up different stories as we look at all the symbols and possibilities in a scene that we connect to differently. And I just noticed something new for the first time in this photo, and this is about a 7-year-old photo. Near the top right, there's a little strand of like a little metal necklace up at the top right, and I've never noticed that before. See? Layers beyond just a picture of an orange wall with pipes and an open window and stuff inside the window. Yeah, I love stuff like this. Pay attention. Again, think about your peripheral vision. Be aware of things that are out here you're not looking directly at, but you trained yourself to go, okay, brain, look for interesting things out here. And then your brain will say, I think it's over here. Take a look. And then you go, oh, yeah. Or no, not really today. All right, let's move on to another photo. These chairs in the Student Union building, they were lined up for some graduation activity a year or two ago, and they're not arranged this way very often in the Student Union building, so that's different. The composition, I'm down a little lower, so you get to see all of them. You get the blurry background, you get the kind of semi-random pattern, you get to see some of the texture on the chairs. So the repetition creates story, the composition, one of many. There's, again, we might tell different stories depending on our own personal feeling and our connection and associations with objects that look like this. And when you can leave it open-ended like that, when you can create a story or a scene that people can add their own story to, those tend to have the most power, the most interest, because it's a starting point for whoever's looking at the photo, the image, to bring themselves into it. Super powerful. So give them a starting point and let them make their own adventure. Another student union photo. We're going to have two more of these. A couple more student union photos. The lights here, the drama. Yeah, just the light, not much else. Simple. Lots of empty space, negative space, but there's story there. The dramatic light. Yeah, this might feel like end of the quarter, stressful time. Here's another photo of another one of those chairs in the student union building with it's all about the shadows. And it's all about taking time with composition and exposure to hide all the stuff in the background. So because the light coming in is so bright, I can expose for that light, which in effect hides everything else. So while I'm there looking at it, that's not what it looks like. But I can have my camera see it this way, which creates a different story. So leverage the defect, if you will, the deficiency of our camera not able to see bright and dark as much as our eyes can at the same time. And then that helps you tell stories. So you have to understand technical things to help you create artistic things. or the more you understand them, the deeper you understand them, like fractions, uh, then you have more opportunity to create with them. To create with them. All right, let's carry on. Let's go to mood. Mood, light, color, and atmosphere. Light, color, and atmosphere. So let's just take a look at some examples. Color and atmosphere here. Light, and there's some texture here. This dock on a foggy, cool winter morning. Pretty simple. I accentuated in post-processing in Lightroom. Some of the blues here to make it feel even more cold and wintry. Brought up the texture with clarity and dehaze in the texture slider. So started with the scene in when I created it in the camera, and then finished it with software. A little leaf floating on a lake. Not a leaf. That's not a leaf. That's a feather. We call those feathers, Michael. Those are called feathers. So a single bird feather. Again, something you notice. Compose so there's nothing else in the scene, and keep it simple. It's quiet. So quiet. So the composition does that. The composition is quiet. This is at Snoqualmie Falls. So you get the mist coming off the falls. The sun was in position to make kind of those light rays. And that's what I started taking pictures of. And I remember this visit vividly because it was a crowded day at the Snoqualmie Falls, and lots of people were there taking photos. And in relation to this photo, so the falls are over here, and I'm looking over this way, so about 90 degrees to the right. And everybody else is looking over here. And this lady who saw me pointing my camera the other direction, she goes, "What are you taking a picture of?" And I pointed at the mist and the light shining through it in the trees, and she went, "Oh, I didn't even see that." Yeah, so it helps you if you think differently. If you look for the unexpected, wherever everybody else is looking, look somewhere else and see if there's something happening that everybody else missed. Because what tends to happen, I know if you walk around and you look up in the sky as you're walking down the street, other people start looking up in the sky because why is he looking up there? So if everybody's looking this way, take a look this way, take a look that way, and up and down. See if there's something else that's not obvious to everybody else. But once you see it, it's super obvious. Noticing things is a big part of all this. This bird on a light pole. I think pretty sure this is at Highline, if I remember correctly. I know it looks like a black and white photo, and it's not. It was really just that dreary gray of a day. The black crow on a silhouetted. There's some composition and exposure helping make it accentuate the grayness of the day. But again, I had a feeling I wanted to create in this image, and I did that with composition. You don't see all the cars, you don't see any buildings, any trees. It's just black and gray. That's all that's there, and not much detail. So it's quiet, maybe a little lonely, maybe a little moody, all those kind of feelings. This is a sunrise foggy morning in Issaquah. Just drove to the top of a 5-story parking ride and got to look over these little gently rolling hills. Took some photos of the fog. Simple. All you gotta do is show up sometimes. Had to get up a little earlier than I normally would, but it was worth it for this photo. I really love the moodiness of this. These are fleeting moments, so they don't last very long. It was, maybe like this for about 5-10 minutes, and then all of a sudden it's mostly gone, or it's not as thick, or it moved to a different location. So that makes it unique, rare, and different because it doesn't last very long, and most people never see it because we're sleeping. Yeah, foggy sunrises are kind of fun. Back to the blue water and keeping it simple. In this photo, there were a couple of things floating in the water that I used post-processing to get rid of in Lightroom with the spot removal tool because I wanted this to be super simple, no distractions. So it's just blue, and you can't even tell where the water meets the sky. It was just a neat phenomenon that day of the way the sky and the bank of fog was just blending perfectly with the lake, so you couldn't see anything but blue. It was really cool. It was really cool. Good example of when you see a moment, stop and take a photo of it because you never know when it's coming back. It probably will be different in 30 seconds, let alone one day. So always stop and take the photo. One of my favorite sunset photos. This is here in Sammamish, just down the road from where I live. Hung around for about 40, 45 minutes taking photos of this sunset as it progressed. And right as the sun was hitting the horizon, you got this sun star, and that's a combination of creating a small aperture opening of about f16 to get that sun star look, and then just positioning camera just a little left, little right till it all looks good. Keep it simple, wait around, pay attention, and practice. I mean, I've taken sunset photos at this location for a whole bunch of times, so you know, well, this one's going to be a good sunset, or this one probably is not going to happen. But even then, don't walk away too early. Just enjoy the time out. Because sometimes the sunset looks like it's not going to do anything, and then as you're driving away in the rearview mirror, and this has literally happened to me, it's doing its thing, and you don't have time to turn around and get back because it'll be gone. All right, so that's mood, light, texture, color. Paying attention to those different elements and how they layer on to create meaning and interest between all those different elements. All right, next up, we've got story. So let's move on to story. And story is really people, relationships, and journey. If you want to kind of simplify it, get into 3 words or so. So, people, journey, and relationship. So, there we go. So here's a picture at a wedding. The bridal party. I've added some mood to this with the light. Story about the light. Sometimes you can make your own photo, make your own light. The sunset was happening through these trees, and it looked kind of cool, and we were in this dirt parking lot. So I suggested, hey, why don't we get someone to drive a car back and forth, and let's make some dust. So the groomsman on the far left here in this photo, he went and hopped in his car and drove back and forth a little bit, then hopped back into the picture. So that's how we got all the dust in the air. Yeah, so it was a neat little moment. All the smiling faces, neat day. Weddings are special days. So here's a picture just of the bride, still with a little bit of the dust in the air. Post-processing for mood here, added some warmth. So position the camera to just get kind of a glow on her face through the light that's technically wrong behind her. It's too bright, but it works. Look for moments, people doing things. Obviously, at events like this, weddings especially, moments happen, and you just got to be ready for them. The first kiss here, you may kiss your bride, kind of thing. All the different reactions is fun to see, and if you could. So here's the tip for this: you can't just take one picture. This is it's in the high speed drive mode. So when you hold down the button, you're going to take about 6, 7, 10 pictures as fast as your camera can, and you'll in one of those sequences of photos there will be this, oftentimes, not always, but usually, this neat combination of different reactions plus the moment of the couple or whatever's happening. So you need the high-speed drive mode. You can do this on your phones. I know on a phone, as long as if you hold the shutter button down on the screen or use the volume button, it'll go into burst mode and take a sequence of photos. Excuse me. First dance, moment, the tear. I've shown you this one before. Sometimes the groom is the one who cries at the first look, so that's a neat moment too. Her gently touching his face to wipe it away. Knowing Kaylin's wedding, I've known Noah since he was a baby. This is at his grandparents' house where grandpa had built a playhouse for the boys, and so that's part of the photo, part of the moment, part of the story, part of the story. Yeah. Next, I'm going to show you a sequence of photos taken at Highline. I'm often, and again, I don't know what this says about me, but I've often find interesting people by themselves just doing their thing. So, a student taking a nap in the library, looking through some windows here at him. This student doing some work, working hard, didn't even notice me taking pictures. Determination and hard work. I love that sign in the background there. In the library, single Converse. I've shown you this photo before. Again, there's a little story here. There's, whose shoe is this? Who wears these kind of shoes? I mean, you can make up a whole personality profile, if you will, of the person behind the shoe. And I love that it's vague. It doesn't have to be male or female. Anything about the person except they wear a Converse high top. Looks like a high top. Single student hanging out in the with two empty seats next to the student. Again, kind of a quiet, lonely. The processing accentuates that. There's a little bit of blue added to the shadows in split toning, so that goes with that mood. Another student hanging out. This one's in the student union building. He just had this faraway look on his face, and I was really fortunate to be able to notice it and create a photo out of this moment. So, yeah, black and white accentuates that. The colors of the chair, colors of his shirt, color of his clothing doesn't matter. It just becomes tones and shapes and textures, and his look. This is in a place called Big Mario's Pizza in Capitol Hill, and I noticed this guy sitting at the bar, and he had brought his longboard in. So amidst all these dudes sitting at the bar, there's a longboard plus this shaft of sunlight coming in just so from, I think, across the street. Yeah. So yeah, neat little moment. Observed, caught it out of the corner of my eye, brought my camera up, took a picture, went back to eating my yummy pizza. It's really good pizza and inexpensive. Yum. Pizza. You ever heard the phrase "dance like no one is watching"? It's true. No one is watching. So this guy dancing in the student union building, in the midst of people studying or hanging out, just chilling. He's dancing, and nobody noticed except me. And I took a picture, and I framed it between the two pillars, kind of close it in, create a boundary for that. This next photo I'm going to show you is one of my favorites of this couple in the student union building, and she's falling asleep in this, and she's so vulnerable. She's out hard, and he's protecting her, and that's what I read into it anyway. I may be bringing my own stuff to that, but that's what it looks like, feels like. It's just a really quiet, tender moment. Again, the black and white pulls all the colors of the chairs out, colors of the clothes, so you can just really concentrate on the moment of these two people. Another moment, my son and his dog just snuggling together, closed eyes on Keanu here, and David's just my dog. Yeah, so neat little moment. And again, back to this one that I've shown you before. I think I showed it to you on the first class. This photo is just two people sitting on a bench waiting for the bus. But there's more to it because of the moment that I noticed and created a photo from. And that's really all we have to work with, is what's given to us out there, and then what we notice about it, and how we then potentially create something brand new and different out of it that tells a deeper story than be more than just two folks sitting on a bench waiting for a bus. That's what photography lets us do. We have those opportunities to dig deeper, to go beyond just the surface, to create something that wasn't really there, but our camera lets us create it. So we have to know how to use the technical side of exposure and paying attention to light and knowing the terms and which way aperture goes, um, and how fractions work. All that stuff helps us be able to create the kind of photos we want. And then knowing the other end of the tools, which are the software side of things, knowing how to edit a photo to help me finish that story that I intended to create, or maybe that I noticed once I looked at it on a larger screen. Plus composition, obviously, and all the. There's so many layers of ways to tell stories. So, with all those layers of ways to tell stories, it takes time and practice. The only real way to become a better photographer and take more interesting photos is to take lots of photos, to practice at this. Um, The awesome part of that is it's free. It doesn't cost anything extra to take another photo or 10 or 20. So I encourage you to take photos as often as possible to create something for you, especially during this pandemic time we're living in. This video is recorded in July of 2020. How does it feel? Make some photos about that. Create some images that reflect how you're feeling right now. Um, I'm going to share a few artists, a couple photographers that inspire me in different ways. Two of them will be their photos are of people. Vivian Meyer, she was a nanny in the Midwest and in New York, in Chicago and New York, but she was mainly a photographer. She paid for her photography as a nanny. There's been a couple documentaries made about her, numerous books written. Her story is fascinating. Her work wasn't discovered until after she died, or right before she died. Um she didn't have the money to pay for the storage where her photos were, so it got auctioned off, and some people discovered it and then started buying all her other stuff, and then soon after that she did die. But fascinating person. I've got a couple books about her, but I just love her stories, which are this unique. Her photos, I should say. Her photos create these unique stories, which are both documentary and artistic. They're both facts about a given moment in time, but they also have an extra layer beyond that tells stories. So there's this little. I love the boy with the box. He's curious, so I'm going to find a way to create a way so I can, even though I'm too short to see in, I'm going to look in and see what's inside that box. So it's a story of persistence and figuring a way out. And the couple on the bus, what a tender moment there too. My photo in the Student Union building reminds me of this photo. Just a tender moment of a couple people. Another photographer, contemporary photographer, his name's Sean Tucker. He lives in London. A great observer of light and how people pass through it. He kind of does a lot of anonymous type photos, where you can't tell who the person is, but it's kind of throwback in some ways to the work of artist Hopper, American artist Hopper, and his work of shapes and light and color and anonymous people in urban settings. Um, and then we've got Rachel Talabart, who is a seascape photographer, also in England, with these amazing images of abstract but still identifiable images of the ocean. That's her thing. She's specialized in that, and yeah, creates just amazing storytelling images. So lots of ways to tell story with our photos. The best way is to notice something's happened, figure out what does it mean to you, what do you then need to do technically and creatively to create an image out of those elements, and then how do I communicate that as I finish the photo with software. It's easy. It's going to take me a lifetime to master, probably you as well. But I wouldn't trade it. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to create art this way. It's the art that I finally found, and it took me a long, long time to discover that this was my way of creating art. Yeah, there you go. Storytelling and creating interest in our photos. As always, any questions on the video, any comments, please leave them below below the video here in the comment section. Add them to the discussion on Canvas. Send me an email. Stop by Zoom office hours, and we'll be glad to discuss this further. There will be some questions to answer as an assignment here in class number 10. So you get to look forward to that. I know you're excited. Questions. It's how I make sure you watch the videos. Anyway, thank you so much. I will see you in the next video. Until we meet again, have fun out there creating photos. Stay safe, stay well, wash your hands. Right now, we're mostly staying home again, so be safe. Take care. I'll see you in the next video.